Hey, what is up everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a jam-packed episode that's tailor-made for all you die-hard Dallas Cowboys fans out there. We're diving deep into the latest good news and the bad news surrounding the boys, and we're giving you full breakdowns on three key figures: DeMarvion Overshown, Shavon Revel, and Juanyeh Thomas. This is going to be one of those episodes where you'll want to stick around from start to finish, because the mood swings in the locker room and front office right now are real and they matter for the season ahead. So grab your beverage, settle in, and let's unpack what's happening in Big D. First things first, let's talk about the good news, because yes, the hype is very real. Starting with DeMarvion Overshown, this guy is showing up big time in practice, and the Cowboys coaching staff is taking notice. Reports are coming in that Overshown has made several key plays during defensive drills, particularly in coverage and when coming off the edge. His athleticism is just off the charts. He's the kind of guy who leaps out of the tape, who makes the highlight reel even when the TV cameras aren't rolling. For a defense that's been searching for more playmaking ability and more speed to chase down opens, Overshown appears to be one of those players who could bridge the gap. He's shown improved recognition of offenses, better posture when dropping into coverage, and even a few flashes of the physicality you'd like to see from a linebacker in the Cowboys system. Sources suggest the team is now seeing him as more than just a developmental project. He's potentially a contributor this season rather than a future guy. That kind of leap is the kind of news that gets fans pumped, especially since the Cowboys have been investing in defensive versatility and need impact players in roles they can trust. Overshown's growth could mean added depth, and in the stacked and physically demanding NFC East, depth often equals wins. Then moving on to Shavon Revel, here's another player whose stock is rising. Revel has been showing in training camp and preseason sessions that his pass rush tools and natural instincts are worth paying attention to. The Cowboys defense is counting on more pressure, more disruptive defenders who can force quarterbacks into mistakes, pressure the run, and shift momentum in games. Where Revel stands out is his bend around the edge, his ability to dip inside when asked, and his motor. He doesn't just rush hard for a play or two, he sustains effort, and that matters late in games. Word from the coaches is that Revel has also studied the playbook extensively, which means less confusion, quicker reactions, and more opportunities to make a splash. For a team that has had moments of defensive brilliance but also periods of disappearing when things get tough, those individual improvements from Revel bring hope. Combine that with the fact the Cowboys are beginning to find more roles for these younger defenders in rotation, and you've got a recipe for a more dynamic, fresher defensive front. That's very good news. Finally, let's highlight Juanyeh Thomas. Now here's a player who may not always grab the headline, but his contributions and growth matter, especially in a league where special teams can flip field position, change momentum, and help win close games. Thomas has been accepted by the special teams coaching staff as someone who can be trusted in high-leverage situations, punt coverage, return lanes, and the all-important kickoff unit. But beyond that, there are encouraging signs of his defensive snaps increasing. The key here is insurance. The Cowboys need depth, they need reliable backups who can step up, and Thomas is beginning to give the team that. He's shown improved tackling technique, smarter alignment, and better communication with his teammates on the back end. The good news? If someone ahead of him goes down, Thomas could be ready sooner than expected. That kind of depth is vital, especially given the grind of a full 17-game regular season and the physical demands of the playoffs. So for all those fans concerned about what happens when starters take hits or need rest, Thomas stepping up means less worry, more flexibility, and ultimately a stronger roster overall. So we've covered the good. But hold on, because the bad news is just as real and in some cases even more concerning if not addressed properly. Let's start with a big one: the injury situation. The Cowboys disclosed that one of their key defenders is now expected to miss multiple weeks after aggravating a previous injury. While it hasn't been officially confirmed whether this specific absence will knock the team out of a rhythm, the reality is that missing a veteran pro in the defense disrupts chemistry, rotations, and trust on the field. When you consider that the Cowboys' defense is already integrating younger players like Overshown, Revel, and Thomas, that kind of disruption can slow development. The bad news isn't just the absence of that veteran, it's the potential ripple effect. Younger guys get more snaps before they are fully ready, rotation becomes thinner, and fatigue often becomes a factor later in games. That's a scenario no team wants when contending for a playoff run. Another negative angle, the offense is also facing some hurdles specifically in terms of protection and consistency. One of the concerns that keeps popping up: how well will the Cowboys' offensive line hold up against physically dominant fronts? Even if you have weapons in the skilled positions and a quarterback who is accurate and poised, if the O-line can't create lanes, if pressure gets in too quickly, if the running game stalls, all of that puts the defense back on the field and drains the team. So the bad news here isn't just the obvious "we got hurt" or "we missed a block" stories. It's the deeper structural concern that the Cowboys might not yet have fully ironed out the kinks in key units. That means they might be vulnerable to teams who can exploit those weaknesses, especially in the playoffs when every bit of advantage counts. Now zoom in once again to our younger players and ask, despite the praise, is there a risk? With Overshown, Revel, Thomas stepping up, there's tremendous upside, but also the inherent risk of assuming too much, too quickly. Young players often have flashes of brilliance, but consistency and stamina over 90+ plays a game? That's a different beast entirely. Any misstep or mental error from those younger defenders will be magnified because the Cowboys are leaning more on them. The bad news: if those guys hit a rough patch, it could expose the team's inexperience at critical moments. And with the Cowboys' ambitions being nothing less than conference championship and Super Bowl aspirations, the margin for error is razor thin. It's not just about making plays, it's about making them when they matter most. And finally, the overarching bad news may be more strategic and cultural than individual. The Cowboys have a history of big expectations and big disappointments. The gap between potential and performance has loomed large at times. Right now, the team is in a transitional window. Some elite veterans still carry the team, but the youth movement is beginning to assert itself. That transition always brings tension: how to mix stability with innovation, how to stay hungry while avoiding complacency, how to build chemistry with new voices while preserving culture. If the front office and coaches mismanage that balancing act, the bad news is the risk of stagnation or regression becomes real. Injuries, upstarts, pressure, the unforgiving nature of the NFL's schedule, all of these add up quickly. So the broader bad news is the certainty that this season won't forgive to mistakes, and the Cowboys may pay a heavy price walking the line between hype and discipline. Now, given all that, let's give you how this all ties together, the implications, and what to keep an eye on, because being a true fan means seeing both sides, not just the highlights. If Overshown continues to ascend and becomes a legitimate rotational contributor, or even starter, that changes things for the Cowboys' defense in a very meaningful way. It means more flexibility, more mismatch possibilities, and more depth. If Revel becomes a dependable threat off the edge, that elevates the pass rush and puts pressure on opposing quarterbacks. If Thomas evolves into a reliable special teamer and backup defender, the Cowboys get insurance and can stay fresh through the long haul. These are positive catalysts. On the flip side, if the injury to that veteran lingers or worsens, if the offensive line continues to struggle, or if the youth movement falters under pressure, then the bad news will compound. We could see a season where promise becomes frustration, where the Cowboys are still talented but not elite because of gaps they haven't filled. The margin is small, and the window for error is shrinking. So what should fans watch in the upcoming games and practices? Keep an eye on how often Overshown and Revel are being used in high-leverage defensive situations, third downs, red zone, hurry-up offense scenarios. That will tell you whether the coaches truly trust them or whether they're still being sheltered. Also, monitor the offensive line's performance metrics: pressures allowed, run blocking grades, second level movement. And never undervalue the special teams and backup roles. Watch Thomas and how he contributes there. Sometimes those hidden units decide big games. At the end of the day, this story is far from complete. The Cowboys have an intriguing mix, a baseline of solid veterans, promising young talent emerging, and a season full of opportunity ahead. The good news gives us excitement and hope. The bad news keeps us grounded and mindful of what must be fixed. And as always, it's about execution. The players can only perform, the coaches can only scheme, the front office can only assemble the pieces. The magic happens when all those elements come together at the right time. Thank you so much for watching, for sticking around, and for being part of this community. I'll be back soon with more breakdowns, more film study, and the latest updates as this Cowboys journey unfolds. Let's ride this wave together, stay alert for both the wins and the roadblocks, and keep believing, because if this team gets the good news to dominate, they can make serious noise. But if the bad news creeps in unchecked, watch out. Until next time, I'm signing off. Stay loud, stay proud, and stay ready for kickoff.